Are you going to do the introduction, Sam, anyway?
I am, yeah. So, hello everyone. Welcome to this Collective for Climate Action Engagement Week call on community discussions. Today it's going to be Mike Tregent leading the call. He's a communications lead at the CFCA, and he's going to talk us through how we currently communicate, how we've been seeking feedback already, what we've done to act on that, and then we're going to be using today as a session to get some feedback from you as well. So we've got this Jamboard, you should have a link. If you want to add any questions or thoughts to the Jamboard, whether you're watching this live or if you're watching a recording, please do, and we can take that into account. And get back to you as well. But I'll hand over to Mike now to take you through the presentation, which is also on the Jamboard.
Great, thanks, Sam, and hi everyone. As I say, welcome to the session, and really pleased that you are a member of the collective. We're all here basically to share the load and the message of the importance of both climate change and the ecological emergency that are evolving around us. So today we want to talk to you a little bit about what we've been doing in terms of communications, because obviously how we do it is critical to getting messages out, but not only that, getting the right messages out in the right way. And since the inception of the collective, it has grown very quickly, and that has necessitated that we adapt to try and meet the needs of that many people, and to also ensure that we can do what we need to do, because this is all done on a voluntary basis, and obviously there are restrictions in terms of our time and resources. So if you like, you're part of the review process, and we really want you to engage with this and to give us your ideas about what works, what doesn't work, how you think we can do things perhaps better, and of course things that you like as well. So if we move on through the slides, I'll do a little bit more. So we've done the introduction, and what I'll go on to the next slide. So there's lots of information on there, but I'll just sort of summarize it. When people joined us via Slack, which is our main platform for the community, for the collective, we were finding that people were joining via the sort of new members channel, and we were welcoming people in a fairly ad hoc way. So we've now created an onboarding message. So I think we've already done a lot to improve that. Again, it's about perhaps questions here, and things that you could perhaps add to the Jamboard are around what sort of information you require when you first join us. So I'll give some examples. One is knowing about our fundamentals, which is a single document that explains how everything came into being. Another is about the current ways that we do communicate through the newsletter, the website, all sorts of things, including external, how should we say, friends of the collective who are on LinkedIn. So it's about that. What sort of information are you sort of going to need first, and how easy is it to find? So perhaps those are things that you could comment upon on the Jamboard, and we can take that then into account with the onboarding message. So I'll just move through and show you where the Jamboard page is. It's there. Got a couple of messages already, which is wonderful. And as I say, these boards will be open after the presentation. So if you're watching this as a recording, you can still have the opportunity to make some comments. Okay, we'll move on to the next topic. Slack changes. Now, Slack was chosen as our main platform because it was the one that was most accessible to people across different organisations. And as we want to be a completely inclusive cross-government collective, it was important that we could use a channel that provided for that. Slack is perhaps not as complicated as it looks, and Ian Cable, our education lead, has put together some very useful demonstrations which can be accessed via Slack, but also they're on YouTube, and they are pinned to the channels. Again, we've got a Jamboard session for Slack, and I think we've already made quite a few changes to be clearer about what the channels are for, but we would welcome your views on whether less is more, or whether we need to have dedicated channels for certain groups, how those groups also interact, because we don't want to necessarily have to lead everything. We want debate, discussion, sharing of ideas to evolve, and we think that Slack offers that. It's a case of how comfortable people are with using it and how willing they are to engage in that way. So we don't want it to just be a repository for huge quantities of information. We want it to be, if you like, the information's there to stimulate the debate and the ideas about actions that we can take collectively or individually. I'll give you a little example. I'm quite prepared, if people think it's a good idea, to sort of summarise some of the topics, because there's, as I say, there's these huge amounts of information, and it might be sea level rise, it might be something particular to a certain resource, or it might be species and biodiversity related. What I can do is sort of summarise the latest information from those, and we could have a location on Slack where those briefings are available. So if, for example, you think that's a good idea, then you could promote that on Slack, and it would give me an idea of where to spend some of my limited time in helping to communicate those messages. So if we go through to the Jamboard page for that. There we go. So there's some headings there that you can put stuff under, so about the channels, about the organisation, and obviously whether we have regional channels, but feel free to suggest other things besides that. Now we'll just briefly go back a slide. Working groups. These are the ones that we set up originally to, if you like, perform the governance functions of the whole collective. So it had to be sort of broken down into specific groups. Now, it's fair to say we're not precious about this, but obviously it does depend on who can volunteer to do what. And again, Ian set up a channel to enable people to volunteer, and again, it's about choosing groups. So where you think your skills might match those groups, it'll be really good if people could volunteer to help out with those groups, and then we can bring them together under the Slack channels so that they have a platform to communicate on those particular working groups. So again, it's a bit about the governance. You know, we're happy to set it up how it works best for people and makes people feel comfortable about volunteering, you know, both their time and their skills to do a little bit for the collective. Okay, so we'll move on. Now, about communicating. There are lots of ways, and again, it might be that this is something we want to simplify, or something where we want to be, you know, perhaps less frequent but more targeted. So an example of that is the newsletter. We started out producing monthly newsletters, and they were very good and well received. However, as the collective grew and the number of different platforms and media outlets grew that we were using, two things happened. One, the purpose, if you like, and the main thrust of the newsletter was slightly lost. And secondly, it also became quite, I won't say a burden, but it required resources to produce this on a monthly basis. And we were also producing communications through other outlets as well. So we decided to make the newsletter a bi-monthly publication and to use it as a more strategic means of communicating. So we've reduced the amount of content, but focused on the things that are important to us. So, you know, for example, we can focus on a specific part of the community or working group. On this newsletter, obviously, we're focused on the engagement week that's taking place now. And we could also sort of flag and highlight some interesting podcasts and presentations that people can take a look at as part of, you know, learning more about those topics. So the whole thing is to try and theme the newsletter, make it quite strategic to keep it relevant to the whole collective, which I think is an essential element of what the newsletter's about. So we'll just move on. And as you can see, there's a Jamboard here which enables you to comment on all of the content of the newsletter, but also you can feel free to suggest how this links in with other aspects of how we communicate. I think it's quite important to draw those links. As I said, I've tried to point out we want it to be strategic, but we also want it to be connected and inclusive. And I think that's a theme that runs throughout the communications. You know, those two words, connectivity and inclusivity, are really important to how we want to communicate. Right now, my dog's communicating, but I hope you can't hear her too loudly. So yeah, again, Jamboards are open for a while, so feel free to post ideas, and we can try and take them all on board. Moving on, Councilworking Group, Heather's doing that, so we won't dwell on that. But again, it's there if people are on the council, you can volunteer. Events and community chats. Again, this is an area that developed early with what were basically what we called coffee chats, you know, sort of environmental cafe. And those are still going strong, and they're very, very useful part of how we reach out to all parts of the collective and how we engage potentially with new members. Again, I think what's really important for this is that it's inclusive, that we're reaching everyone. So ideas on that and making sure that we're actually meeting the eyes and ears of the people within the collective, but also those that might want to join. You know, growth is important to us because it amplifies the message. It's not for the sake of growth itself. This is about amplifying our messages and having more potential to have an impact. So again, thoughts on how we do that. And I mean, it can just be word of mouth. You know, you can say, well, I'll pledge to speak to 5 people and try and get them to join the collective. That would be really amazing. It might be leading through, you know, example. You might be doing something that you're proud of in an environmental sense, and you want to tell that story. And again, we can find a medium to do that. So I think promoting those hands-on type stories is really important, because I think the collective operates at 2 levels really. One is that strategic level where we want to focus on the big issues and make sure that people are very clear about what they are and how we can impact them. But also there's this individual or small group element, community element, where you can do something that has an impact, that is positive, drives the right behaviours, but is also a feel-good factor. And again, we want to be able to share that. We want to be able to say to people, yeah, climate change is a bad thing, but we can still do good things around it. So again, capturing those stories and relaying them to a wider audience is important. So if we look at the Jamboard on that one, there we go. I've mentioned the coffee chat, so I'll go past that slide. But as you can see, there's the climate cafes, coffee and chat. The climate cafe is where we come out and meet the collective. Obviously, for the last year, that's been done on a virtual basis, but we are happy, once it's safe to do so, to actually come out and meet personally. I think having a friendly face to the collective is really important, and maybe that's something we need to consider in the post-pandemic environment. The coffee and chats are sort of one-to-ones where you sign up to the list, and every month you're allocated someone at random to speak to. Again, that's really good. Can it be improved? Can it evolve into something else? If that's what you feel, if that's what you think, and you've got ideas about that, please put them up on the Jamboard there. And I think that's most of the elements that I wanted to cover. Obviously, in heading to a Q&A session, it's potentially random, but I would welcome anyone to put questions on the Jamboard, even if it does seem random, because quite often that's a good way of initiating something new. Just have a look. I think we've got a Q&A Jamboard at the end. That's the one. So anything can go on there, and if there's something you want us to provide a specific answer to, then please do say so, and we will be able to get back to you and provide some sort of answer. That's brilliant. I will now go quickly back through the slides that we've just missed out. Right, the coffee and chat, I think we've covered most of that, but again, these are fairly regular events, so you'll find them on the Slack channel, and you can just sign up to those through Eventbrite, the same way as you have for these presentations. So hopefully that will be relatively easy and painless. Just go on now to the sort of summary. As I say, oh, could you go back one, Sam? Excellent, cheers. Yeah, one of the key things about communication is we don't want to just be talking at people. We really want this to be engagement two-way, and not just between the coordinators either, but between the members of the collective. I think it's really important that we keep talking to each other and sharing ideas. And this is how we'll also get more people to participate. So if you're talking to someone who's not a member of the collective yet, then what we want is for people to feel confident and empowered to tell them what we do. And again, that's probably something important for the Jamboards. What will make you feel like that? What will make you feel empowered? What information do you need? What will give you confidence? I think those are real important things in engaging with people. So being confident to talk about climate change or biodiversity loss, and to make the point and to say to people, well, you should be interested in this, because I think that's very important. How can we help you to do that? You may already have a high degree of knowledge and confidence, or you may be just starting out on the journey, as it were. And if that's the case, you will need slightly different tools. So again, tell us about how you think that works, what sort of tools you would need. Yeah, and feel free to ask questions, not just of us, but of other members of the community. As I say, it's about sharing these common experiences and stories about what you've done. Suggesting campaigns and themes. As I say, the newsletter, we intend it to be themed. So again, suggest stories. What do you want to hear about? What's important to you now? All of those things are really useful and helpful. So feel free, put those on the Jamboard, or again, even outside of this week, we still want feedback. It doesn't end at the end of engagement week. That's just the start. Yeah, and as I say, tell people what you've been up to. Have you been putting some bee hotels up in your garden, or creating a beetle habitat or something? Anything at all. You might not think it's important, but all these things have it's a collective. All these things leverage improvement and make you feel better. So I think at that point we've covered everything. As I say, we're welcome to take any questions, and as I say, the Jamboards will be open at least till the end of the week, and maybe a little longer. So you can still post stuff, and we will gather all that in and try and do our best to take everyone's views on board. So at that point, I will thank you very much for joining and for watching the presentation, and hope that you can enjoy and participate in the collective as much as possible. Thank you. Hi, John. We can stop recording, I think, and then I'll just open it up so that we can have a chat amongst ourselves. How did it go?